Hello, welcome to AP Sources Simplified. We are nearing the end of our AP exam review series. The last couple of videos were focused on comparing and contrasting. Today we are looking at the only governments the USA has had, the failed Articles of Confederation, and our current government under the Constitution. This will just be a brief overview of the differences with some key details. It would be great to use in an APUSH essay about the topic. Okay, so let's get into the comparison. First, the central government in the Articles of Confederation was weak, and this is what led to its downfall, while the Constitution created a far stronger government than that of the Articles. Under the Articles, states had significant power, nearly as much as an independent country would, while the central government could barely do anything. Under the Constitution, there was a clear delegation of powers to both the federal government and state governments. While state governments have specific areas of control, like education, the federal government had sovereignty over the states. A brief comparison of the structure of both governments. The Articles really only had one branch, under which was a legislature, in which every state had a vote. It was difficult to get anything done because passing any bills required 2/3 of the states or more to agree, and pretty much impossible to make changes to the government, as that required a unanimous consent from all states. The government under the Constitution is much larger and more intricate. There are three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. The legislative branch is bicameral, meaning two houses. The first is the House of Representatives, which is based on population. States with larger populations have more seats. And the other is the Senate, in which every state is proportioned 2 senators. There are checks and balances to the power of the three branches, and I could go on for far longer. However, I'm going to keep this brief. Next, a major problem under the Articles of Confederation were taxation and monetary issues. The government could only request states pay taxes and had no other way to collect revenue. This sent the United States credit and monetary system into a tailspin, as the U.S. owed debts to foreign countries from the Revolutionary War, in which it could not pay them off. Under the Constitution, the government has much more ability to tax and also regulate trade. This is seen in the whiskey tax, which was implemented shortly after the Constitution took hold, and tariffs that were instituted under Hamilton's financial program in the 1790s. Also, the Constitution was more elastic because of the necessary and proper clause, allowing for the government to do things that were not specifically stated in it, like have a national bank. Although this would be very controversial, and I cover that topic with more depth in other videos. A few more comparisons to cover. First, as mentioned before, the government under the Articles had a hard time accomplishing anything, even the ability to put down small local rebellions, seen in the Shays Rebellion. There was no chance of other great powers ever taking the U.S. seriously. This changed under the Constitution. The government was able to legitimize its power when farmers in western Pennsylvania openly defied the whiskey tax and started a rebellion. Washington and his Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, who had a real interest in seeing the Constitution triumph, successfully put down the rebellion. Next, the Articles of Confederation had no Bill of Rights. It would not have been able to enforce them anyways. But the topic came up with the Constitution. Those who opposed the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists, demanded it be added as a protection against tyranny. Speaking of the Anti-Federalists, they had some well-known people in their camp that opposed the Constitution: Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry, to name a couple of them. But the other side also boasted well-known figures, like James Madison, who wrote most of it, and Alexander Hamilton. It also had the tacit support of George Washington. So what was the deal with the Anti-Federalists? Well, they were worried that the Constitution, with its strong central government, would lead to tyranny, and it goes against the reasons for the Revolution. On the other side, the Federalists worried the country would be unmanageable under the Articles of Confederation, and thus the Constitution was necessary. Okay, that does it for comparing the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more AP test review and primary source analysis.